Okay, everybody, you may be able to hear the faint sounds of the sanitary truck outside loading garbage. As I promised you last night, which was the 21st, I was going to do a part two. And as I mentioned, part two, I'm going to focus upon row functions. Now, I understand that I understand we hit some chapters seven, six, seven, and especially 7 and 8, that are really more conceptual in basis than they are in doing something. Okay, and I do think it's important that you understand the issues around data integrity and why referential integrity is so important to make sure that we can string tables together. That gives us a greater amount of data to pull from and thus a richer reporting system. And then, of course, we talked about formats, sequences, and indexes. And these are issues in terms of data input and those things that seem to vex us. And that is, dates, especially. You saw there that, having some problems with putting in dates. Now, the graphic user interface and access, where you can go do those kinds of things, is pretty much there now, available for the back office people, say the DBA, who's working on a database to set up to handle referential integrity and formatting and sequences, that type of thing, and the index. So you may be involved in a discussion about that at some point, although I'm doubtful that you will. And the issue of data integrity is really one that's quite important, that you control all of the input. It's not a good idea just to leave things to chance. Now, if you want people, say you want people to have an opportunity to speak, just in a free-flowing thing, or write a paragraph or something like that, then provide them. Then most systems will provide them a text box or type of editing, notepad editing, where you can input answers. But on the whole, you want complete control over that, so you get the data that you need in the format that you can use best. Okay, and that's what those two chapters were all about. Well, we're gonna look at chapter 9 now, and here we're gonna take a look at the row functions, and this is going to be the first opportunity we're going to have to see how we can use access as an analytical engine, as a means to do mathematical computations. Although the row functions don't provide you as much help as you would want. And that's kind of a segue to chapter 10, using row functions. So they're going to talk about the functions, and then chapter 10 talks about using them and then summarizing data. So I know we're going to do chapter 9 today, and we'll work through that. And I might go into chapter 10, but I think probably we're just going to stop at the function and understand it, okay? Now, this is all predicated by a very important thing. Now, before I said the row functions over on page 321, that's in we're getting into chapter 9, okay? The thing that's most important is that you understand that a database is a database, and a spreadsheet or an analytical engine is a different matter. And I say that over and over and over because people try to use access like a spreadsheet. You'll see some people who try to use Excel like a database. You can, to a certain extent. The purest form in which you can do it is if you go to a pivot table, and even there, as you start to try to create an analytical cube, and we've talked about what that is, things can fall apart fast on you. So we want to look at these row functions, and if you should have your Patrick textbook open, and when we talk about a function, we're talking about some type of relation that uniquely associates members of one set with members of another set. And it can be divided by, a row value can be added, subtracted, multiplied. And once that's done, a new row value is identified or created. So that's the definition of a function, and that's what they're talking about. And they provide you that definition of a function or a row function, over on page 332. If you look there on page 323, you could see the beginning table, okay? And you've got these 3, 6, 12 tables, and you pull and you get data directly from the table, and you have that result table, okay? And you've got at least one value per table or one row value per table. So this is why that we want to be able to have referential integrity and be able to tie as many tables together as possible. It's just simply a question of how many views do we want to create, and that literally we can develop queries that will execute on thousands of tables at a time. That's really the stuff of computer science folks and database administrators. They they show you there on page 324 a row function where you have the beginning table, you do an operation, and then you have a new value that's created by the row. And so in 325, they walk you through that process, okay? And you create a new column, okay, by applying the function to every row, and then you select the data you want. And they give us some code over there. Now, 9.2 is some Access SQL. So I'm going to go down. I'm going to use SQL Fun here. And so I'm going to open up the Patrick materials again. And I'm going to get the access code for Chapter 9. So that's what we're looking at. Okay. And then I'm going to go back up. And I'm going to get the SQL Fun. I'll make a copy of it. Okay. And there it is. Now I'm going to rename this as Chapter 9. In fact, I'm going to call it LD for Lunch's Database, Chapter 9. We're going to do some work with row functions. Now, again, I would point out to you this whole concept of the data warehouse. You say you're using the same table over, the same database over and over. Yes, that's because I can take advantage of the development of queries, and I can run queries and generate a view, and I'm not changing the table. Those things that we did where we updated tables and you saw all that, that's really the work of the folks on the computing side of things, as opposed to the end users, the DBA side of it. You always have to remember what you and I are seeing is what was created for us to see as end users, and behind the scenes are the people who are working to format those data so they're understandable and all that business. But we use this data warehouse concept is I have a set of tables and I run queries on them. I occasionally have to change them or update the tables, and I string together as many as I want or need because I have referential integrity. Okay? That is, I have a primary key in one table embedded in another table, and when it is a foreign key. You'll hear that, you'll see that term. Let's look at this at page 326, and I'm going to go ahead and open up this database, enable the content, okay? And then I want to go over here and I'm going to grab the text file. And this is the access text file for chapter 9. And here is 9 number 2. And I'm going to click create. Query design. And we'll go to the SQL view. Okay. And we're going to run it. This is, you're about to paste 10 rows into a new table. Boom. Okay. Now we can get the data sheet view over here. This is what we added in. Now we're going to save this as 9.2. Okay. Now over on page 326, they walk you through the process. At the top is the code. And by now you should get what's going on. This first line, we're going to select from the foods table. We're going to get everything. That select foods dot asterisk means, and they give you a note over there, we want all of the data in that table. It's a wild card, so we get it all. Then here comes the use of the row function. Price, okay, plus price increase as new price. So we're going to take the price column and we're going to add the price increase to it, and we're going to call it the new price using a column alias. And so let's look at this for a minute. I'll show you. Of course, now down at the bottom, you'll see the result table. It's the same thing you've got here. Okay. Description. And the product code. I'm just playing with these, getting these out of here. Okay. Now, we've created this price, then plus sign, price increases new price, is a mathematical operation. It's a row function. We've added something to the row. And you look here and you see, okay, why don't we have a price increase and a new price for the soup of the day? And you look there and you'll see that. And then when you come down, French fries, it's the same story. And then you have it creates an auto number, so you've got that new row down, that new empty row. And the answer lies over in the table, the beginning table. If you look there, the soup of the day, they have on the soup of the day have a price, but no price increase and no new price. This is a null. Same thing down here for the French fries. Now here's the problem again with null numbers. That null means nothing, means there's nothing there, period. A 0 indicates the presence of something, even if it's 0 presence. So there's a difference between a null and a 0, and that's important to understand. The truth is they didn't do a price increase for those two products, so they should have gone ahead and when they updated it, put in a 0. You could do that in the expression if you care to, so that it makes sense, or or put in some type of flag or something that indicates these aren't anomalous data; these are intentional. Now, this is important for you because when you get a report, for example, that looks like the new table, the bottom of page 326, and you see these missing data, all right, you're going to be left with the question of, did someone omit the data that should have been in there? Was a decision made not to enter data? What's the issue? Because as you look at this now, it looks like it's an incomplete report. And you say, well, we didn't do any increase in the price. Well, if that's the case, then you ought to have a 0 in there. And the new price should be the same as the old. So you can see it. So you can see it's not changed. And you can do that in the code, or you can come in here into the design area. We'll go down to design view. Okay. And let's go down to the SQL code for a moment. As the new price. Okay, let's go back up to the data sheet view. Now, there's nothing that stops us from putting in a 0. And notice how the new price populates itself. It's 150. The same thing here, we're assuming there's no new price. And watch the row function take over. It'll show you once I enter it. There it is. So we see that we have 2 products that we've not increased in price. We could do a flag and say there's no increase, but if we say 0 increase, that means 0. And this is where I would argue with the authors that what you have down here in the bottom, page 326, it's junk. Because you don't know, did they forget to enter the data? You just don't know. And you don't want to leave those kinds of things to chance. You just simply don't. That's why I would never have a table where I have anything that's not required. If that information that you get is not required, that data, don't collect it. It's stupid to do so. It's a waste of your time, your energy, your money. So we've done the row function. Now what we've done, the row function here, we've done addition here in 9.2. And I tweaked this a little bit so that we have a full table. And we could now export this and ask ourselves, are there any products that had no price increase? Well, that's pretty simple. You're going to be able to see those over in the price increase. Now, watch what I'm going to do, because now I'm going to go in here to the design view, and I'm going to mask the price increase. And you can see, wait a minute, I want to go back to, and let's see, I want I've got the price increase up there, and I want to suppress it. So I'm going to go back down to the design view, and I'm going to put in price increase. Let's see what we get. So we have a bit of a mess. Back to the design view, and I'm going to mask it. There would be, well, We're okay then. We have the new price. So we can see, but we do this. So let's say this is 9.1. And we'll save it. 9.2. Now, they talk about giving us a row function in the select clause, and then using the where conditional statement and the order. So let's look at that code, and that's 9.3. And all we're doing is we're just adding in. Here's the original query. We just got through running it. All right. And so we're going to add anywhere where the menu item is less than 15, and we're going to order it by menu item. So let's copy that, and we'll go into create. We're going to create a new query using the design. Then we'll go down to the SQL view. And let's run it. And there it is, the menu item, the description, and the new price. And this jives with what is at the bottom of page 328. Now, notice what we've done. If you look back at page 326, we started with that simple select query into, so we selected from foods price, and then we used the function of price increase. Then we used a column alias new price, and we inserted those into the section 0902 foods from foods. Okay, and over here we've done the same thing, with the exception that we've added the where clause, where we say that the item's less than 15, and we order by menu item. So we're going to order it according to that. It's in ascending order by default. Well, the by menu item, and that table, we're talking about the menu item number. So that would need to be cleaned up a little bit. That's a little bit deceptive. You think, then you've got description. So you could change that as item description. You might get away with this, but the whole point is we use the where clause, and then we add the order, and they give us the result set at the bottom. Now, over on page 330, we're going to find, and this will be, we'll save this as 9.3, I think. And we'll close it. And then we're going to create a new query. So we'll go to the query design. I'll go straight to the SQL view. And we're going to look at 9.4. If you go back to the code, it's in that text. The text it's in that text in that text file. We're going to select it. Okay. Now it's 9.4, and we're at the top of page 330. I want you to take a look at what we have here. We're going to select the menu item and the description. Then we have the price plus price increase is a new price. So that's familiar territory. And we're getting it from the 1_L_foods table. Where, okay, and here we take that operation, price plus price increase, and we encapsulate it in parentheses so that we get one number, and we compare it versus 2. And if it's greater than 2.00, we select it. If it's not, we don't select it. So we're looking for we're looking for any of these items or it's greater than $2. And then we order that by price plus price increase. And we're going to run this. And there we are. Now we have the same result set that we did with the result tables at the bottom page 330 for 9.4. So we're going to say this is 9.4. But I want to make sure that we understand what we're talking about. Okay? Here's the deal. If you look at the beginning table, right, we have the prices for these items. Now, let's say that we want to see all of the items where, with the price increase, they're now greater than $2. Well, that's pretty simple. That we see that in the query, and then you see it in the results set. Now, let's go down into the design view, and you're going to see the new price plus price. Watch what's going on here. We're going to get the menu items and the description, and then we're going to have new price plus price increase, and then we'll have the price plus price increase, and that's an operation embedded in that equation. And we have the price plus the price increase greater than 2. So we've added on the where and then the order clauses. That's all that's going on. We'll go back up to the data sheet view. So we've done 9.4. Could we use any of the standard mathematical operations, add, subtract, multiply, divide? Of course we can. That's why they're row functions, okay? Now, we've executed them by putting them into the code, but the function is the addition, whatever the mathematical operation is that we want to do. Now, over on page 331, the author walks you through defining a row function as the first set, okay? And he talks about when we can use several different clauses. And as you look over on page 332, you see this query building process. You know, I've talked about referential integrity and tying tables together, and the whole idea is by tying all those tables together, all right, I can get that much more data, and so I can have potentially a better, clearer result set, the more fine-tuning that I do. If you look at page 332, you're going to see 9.5 step 1. Okay, so let's just go ahead and do that. So we'll click create, and we're going to go down here and find 9.5 step 1. And go to the design view. And we'll run it. And this will be 9.5. So we have 9.5 step 1. Let's talk about this for a minute. At the bottom of page 332, you have this beginning table. It's the foods table. And then we run 9.5 step 1. And what we do there is we select the menu item, okay, in the description of it, the price plus price increase as a new price. So we use as, and that's a column alias from foods. And then they ask us to save that and name it section 0905 underscore step 1 underscore view. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. We can rename this quite easily. Okay. And I'm going to go ahead and close this. And then go back down here and find it. There it is, 9.5 step 1. So I'm going to rename it. And it's going to be renamed SEC 0905, section 0905, our old friend underscore. Step 1 underscore view. So we've got section 0905 underscore step underscore then step 1 underscore view. And we've got it saved. Now we can do 9.5 step 2. So we're going to click create. And we're going to down to the query design. And we'll bump down to the SQL level. And we're going back in here now to Patrick, and he's got step 2. And we'll run it, and then we're going to talk about it. As I said before, what this really boils down to is he shows us a general procedure or set of code, and then we keep adding to it. And you'll notice as we're running these row functions, we keep adding more to it. It's an iterative process. So I'm going to click run, and this will be, I'm going to save this as, it'll tell us what to save it by. And let's call this SEC 0905 underscore step 2. Then underscore view. I'm looking here and I don't see that they tell us, he doesn't indicate what he wants us to name it. Okay, so we'll just call it that, step 2 view. Now, let's talk about what we got. And so we want to go back and get this section 0905 table. We don't really need to do it. We've got both of those there in the text if you're following in the text. At the top of page 333, you can see the result table that we got by step 1 was to get all the menu items, their descriptions, okay, and have the price increase, have the price plus price increase as the new price, okay? And so we call it new price. Now you'll see we have a note there about the null. And then we've done that first step. And then the second step is we get the menu item, the description, we use we use the new price from that view that we just created where the price is greater than 2 and we order it by the new price. And that's going to be in ascending order. So we've created the view, then we've come back in here and we take the basic view and then we begin to work operations on it, row functions, like greater than. You'll notice that we use the row function up in step 1 where we use the positive sign. We did an addition. That's all that's going on with rows, with row functions. And you can see the output that's produced by that. And you'll notice, you say, it looks like the output gets smaller and smaller and smaller the more of these queries that I run. Yes, that's called slicing and dicing the data. And we keep getting a higher level of specificity. You can do that if you have tables built properly and you understand their relationships. And so you understand how a row function could be used in each of them. Over on page 334 and 335, you get functions on numbers. Now, it's important to understand that we input numbers, letters, i.e. characters, special kinds of characters like an exclamation point, a dot, etc. And so we can do work on numbers. And the authors walk you through that whole process on page 334, and they tell you the description of what that is. And you can see it goes to a point where there at the bottom, we can truncate a number. This is the bottom page 335, which is basically making an integer. Use the integer function to truncate, but you can see we've got arithmetic, and then we have sign, rounding, and truncation. And they show us examples of it in both Oracle and in Access. Now, on 9.7, they move us into a phase where we're talking about how to test a row function, okay? And he has this thing called a dual table. It has one row and one column. And so let's go over here into the tables area and scroll up here. And we'll find the dual table. And it's really nothing more than a dummy column. It's an empty column, or it's a dummy column with a number in it or a character. And we can go ahead and create a query. And so we're going to click Create, Query Design. And we're going to get 9.7 here. Okay. And we'll run it. And here we get this expression. And it gives us 12. Now I could go in and rename the expression if I cared to. We'll go into the design view of this. It's not going to let me do it. I'm going to have to keep that. Let's go down to the SQL for a moment. So this is set for as, let's call that select 3.4 as product. as product. Let's see if that'll let us do it. And it does. So we'll save this. And this is going to be 9.7. Okay, so we've done some multiplication and we just test it to see if we get the we get the result we should get. And that's all we're doing is just checking a function. You could put in, this is where you might, if you have a fairly complex operation for a row function, you'd put it in here to test it, to see. Again, this is okay, but that's why they created spreadsheets. All right. Now, over on page 337, they give us the mod, and this is the remainder after division. For example, in Access, 10 mod 3 is 1 because we can divide 3. We divide 10 by 3, we get 1 left over, basically, because 3 times 3 is 9, plus 1 is 10. So when we use the mod function in mod 3, okay, we want to know what's the remainder after the division in Access. And they show us there at the bottom of page 337. And they give us a table. Let's go ahead and do it, and then we'll talk about it because now we're starting to generate some numbers. Okay? This is 9.8. And I'm going to click Create, Redesign. Now it says, but notice the code, select in. When we say select in, we say select any number in. That's what the machine is seeing, and we're going to get in mod 3. So we're going to perform a mathematical operation on mod, on n, using a row function, and we're going to find out what we get when we use n mod 3, the remainder after division. Okay? And we're getting this from the test numbers, which are found in section 0908 test numbers table. And so we're going to order them by n. And we'll run it. And there we are. Now, if we want to get rid of the result table for this is over on the bottom of page 338. And the authors show us n, and we have an expression. So we're going to go into this thing, into the design view, pardon me. Let's go back up to the design view for a second. How do I want to do that? And okay, here we are. I'm in this select 0908 underscore test numbers in mod 3 as, and I'm going to put mod n comma 3 and see what I get. Okay. Comma after that, so what we get. it's not playing nice with us. So was trying to invoke the function. So let's try this. Try a couple of things. I'm troubleshooting here. I'm going to move that mod away from the parentheses and see if that gives us anything. No, it doesn't. It's still we could put it into quotes. See what we get there. Yeah, it gives us that, but it gives us the quotes. Let's go back for a second here. We'll go back down to the SQL view. And we're going to troubleshoot a little bit. This is good for us to learn this. See, to do a little bit of troubleshooting. And we want to get that same title header that they do mod in 3. So let's see. I'm going to put it between and put a space there. See what we get there. Space? No, that's not going to do it. So let's go back up to the design view for a second. Troubleshooting. Okay. Let's go back over to the query for just a second. And comma. I'm just going to start over with this query. All right. In comma and we'll run that. Now let's go down to the design level. Here's our culprit. All right. Here's what I'm going to do to alleviate any anxieties you might have. Well, I'm going to break it. No, you won't. But let's go ahead and go in here. And as I've said before, when you're working with something, just go ahead and use the notepad. So I've got this and the expression 1. And we're going to change that. In here. All right. Yeah, so these can be a little frustrating. I'm trying to get that name in there. So it looks nice, just like the author wanted us to do. So let's go over here, select order by N. I'm going to close this. No, I'm not going to save it. And then I'll click create. And I'm going to go back into the query design. And we're going to run it. Now let's go to the design view. And we've got this expression 1. Well, let's see if we can move it over here. This is one of these that's vexed me over time. And we want the heading on that to be mod in comma 3. Now let's see if it'll run for us. Oh, it does. Beautiful. Okay. Here's what just happened. I ran the code for 9.8. All right. And I end up with 2 columns, one which is the n and then the mathematical result there. Okay. And the mod, what's remaining when we've divided it by 3. And I wanted to make sure I could duplicate the column title or alias that the author has here at the bottom of page 336. So we went a little bit of work. I tried messing around with it in the code, but what I found was I was down in the, let's go to the SQL view and you'll see. Now we're select, and they put in mod, and they've got the n in the bracket there. Any client like this or application will sometimes do the work for you, which they did, and they went ahead put mod n3 in brackets so we would get that. When we go back up to the design view, and basically we said this is the name of the expression, here's how we're going to get the expression, and notice that the n, okay, is in brackets. And that's because we're using that field. So victory for us. So we're going to call that 9.8. 9-8. Okay. So they show us that. We learned a little bit about doing it. As I've said before, there are going to be some times when it's easier to work at the code level. There are going to be times when it's easier to work at the design view level. It just depends. Okay. All right. So we've done 9.8. Now, over on page 340 and 341 and 342, 3 and 343, they show you all of the text functions that are used in Oracle and Excel. And this runs all the way from concatenation and dealing with strings and replacing strings. And frankly, when you hit a task, most people really have to go back and think through that. There's quite a few functions there. Well, we're going to do query 910. And that's at the bottom of page 344. And we're going to use concatenation. Okay? And that means to combine something. And so I'm going to click Create, Query Design. Okay. And you say, where did we concatenate? You can probably see it better here in the notepad than you can there. Notice, okay, we select the employee ID, we get the first name, and then see the ampersand, that's the concatenation operator. And then we have a blank space, then another concatenation operator, last name as full name. And so that's the beginning table, and then the result table using the concatenation is over there in 345. The ampersand performs that function. So we can do some combining first and last names. I frankly doubt that you'll be working with anything like this, but you can see with all of the different text functions, trying to use access as something to these text functions. Let's just go ahead and copy the thing and then run it. Okay, I'll just say it. My belief is that if I've got to go to that trouble in terms of using one of those string or those text functions, I probably, well, I probably should just go ahead and bite the bullet and put the names together, because it's what I end up with, and have a form that gives me the full name. But and you say, well, what if I wanted to know the birthday of everybody named, Martha? Well, okay, have at it. So I'm not sure how useful this is. It is somewhat, if you're writing code, to understand that, but I don't know. And then back on 346, they walk you through a process of separating the names, okay? And I'm just going to show you that. It's 911. It's over on page 347, okay? And this is the top, and we're going to select the full name, and then we're going to use the insert string function, and that'll be full name, a blank space, as position of space from the sectional 911 full name. And we save that as our first view. And then we do another positioning of space, and we use the mid function, and that's how we end up splitting them up again. Look, if you have a problem, okay, if you have something like that, it's a lot easier in Excel than writing this code. If you had, let's say you have this, and you've got not only full name, but let's say you've got address, and then you've got the physical address, the city, the state, and zip all in one column. And you say this won't work. Well, you can always export this into Excel, and then you can split those columns and divide them so that you get them into a better tabular form. Then you can export them back in as a new table. So I don't know that this is the best of practices, but the authors wanted to show you this. Formatting phone numbers, we've been through that. Go into the GUI and do it there, or use a form. And then he talks about the functions on dates, access, Oracle, more date functions, and even more date functions. I think you can hear from the sound of my voice that when you create a form, if you're in on a team that's doing this, or you have a form that's not designed well, then that's when you get into problems. Now, I can, like I said, I can export this into Excel and split the columns, or I can use them. I can split it and use, or I can use it as is. It may not be all that helpful to me. Especially names are not that important. But when you start to talk about a street address, okay, or a zip code, or a state, an area code, then you start to venture into territory where you really don't want to go. Okay? Now, when you encounter something like this where you've got to pull it apart and all that business, this is part of what people will call data cleaning, and that's a part of when you hear people talk about big data and all of that. A piece of this is just getting it into column units or dimension units that make sense. It probably doesn't make that much sense for the first and last names unless you want to alphabetize them so you could do a direct mailing. Otherwise, you're okay here. The date functions go into the GUI and change it. They'll walk you through some more, like 9:15, removing the time from a date, adding those in. Those can be done in the GUI with the drop-down menu. So there's some time spent there with these row functions. They can just be, well, I'm not sure you're going to be using this all that much. Now, let's go ahead and call this 99. Now, I'll show you what I'm talking about, okay? Now, I've saved it, so I'm going to close this off. And let's go find 99. Let's look in the queries. And there's 99. And I'm going to export this to Excel. And I'm going to browse and determine where I want to put it. I'll put it on my desktop. Okay. Click Save. And OK. I'm going to diminish my screen here for a minute, and I'm going to find 99. And it's probably going to be one of those funky looking kind of things that don't really look like an Excel sheet. There it is. You say, what's the story with that? Okay. You see this icon here. It's and you see my cursor on it, and I'm getting the descriptor bubble pop up and tell me it's a Excel worksheet. But gee, it doesn't look like all the other worksheets in terms of its iconic value. Well, that's true because right now it's a system file. And you say, what do you mean by that? A system file is a file that's used to export from one environment to another, okay? And so what we've done is we were in the warehouse, we had created this query, and we exported the thing into my desktop, and this icon here is saying, hey, I was exported into you. Take a look. It's also a security thing to make sure that you don't have something downloaded that's not good. Well, let's open it up, and you'll see that it opens right up as an Excel sheet. And to get that icon, to get that icon off of there, I would want to. Now, here we go, and we've got all of this in column. We got the employee number, and then we have the full name. Okay, so let's pull this out a little bit. And if I look over here in the data, okay, and I can click on text to columns. No, David, we're going to parse these data. And we'll do the text to columns. And you could see if I wanted to have a delimited, the characters such as commas or tabs separate each field, right? or we could have fixed width. But we're going to do the delimited, and we'll click next. And it says, where do you want to delimit it? And we're going to delimit it at the tab. And we'll click finish and see what we got. Well, it didn't give me, oh, it didn't do the thing for me. Well, you little weasel. I'm going to do the fixed length, and we're going to try this. See, this is part of that where we talk about cleaning up some data. See, we're going to have to come in and literally put some more spacing in here so we can safely move it over. Notice I'm going to line these up. She's near. So we'll go up into brown and move brown out. You can see how tedious this is. Woods is already out at their distance. Owens will have to move over some. You can see what we're dealing with. Now let's do the text to columns. And we didn't get the desired result. Try that. We'll do delimited. And we can come over here. Okay. And we can do this physically. You can see why this can become so problematic for us if we want to split these names out. And I'm going to close this file and reopen it. Okay? And then we'll do a little bit more work with it and move on. But these are the kinds of nightmarish kinds of things we get into. So I'm going to take Susan Brown and I'm going to do a tab. I'm taking at start at Brown and do a tab. I'm going to do Jim Kern. I'm going to do a tab. I'm going to come to Martha Woods. Tab. And Ellen Owens, same thing. Henry Perkins, I'm going to do the same thing. Bill Rose, I'm going to do the same thing. Tab. Now I could easily also, I could have put in a comma or another delimiter that lets me split this text out. Okay, so I can get, and I'm certain there's a text function in Excel I'm forgetting about trying to use. All right, now we're going to do this. And I'm going to click on the data, okay, text to columns. Only convert one column at a time. So we'll work with this. And now we're really to do delimited. And we want it at the, and we want the tab. We'll click next. Let's finish and see what we've got. Well, it didn't split it for us. That's one I'd have to kind of work on. And I'm sure there's a function there, but you can see the kinds of issues we run into. If we had a form, we've saved ourselves all this trouble. So I don't know. I'm going to delete it. For some reason, it's not being nice to me, and I'm going to kill it. Okay, so we've done 9.9, and we've done 9.8. Excuse me, and then we've got 9.9. And we have their full name, and this is something where we probably would want to go back and find one of those text functions and apply it here. You can see this is just, again, data input can be maddening unless you control it right at the start, and the way you do it is using a form. I'm going to try one more time here. I don't want to give up, so I'm going to close this off. And I'm going to try it one more time. I'm going to export it to Excel on my desktop. Okay. And we'll close this off here for just a minute. And we should find our little icon. There it is again. And we're going to open this up. And I'm going to save it on this PC on a desktop. And I'm going to call it 9.9. And it's now an Excel workbook. That will replace it. Okay. Now, I'm going to try using a comma as a delimiter. And see if that's going to do any good for us. If not, I'm going to give up. Try and figure it out another way. This is what you'll be doing at work, messing around with stuff like this. So your time is coming. I mean a comma. And here we go. Okay. Now I'm going to highlight these cells. Data, and I'm going to do text to column. And we're going to click on comma. And there you go. Now we'll click OK. It's showing me what I'm going to get. We'll click OK, and we'll finish. And there it is. So this ends up becoming last name. Went through a little bit of trouble there, but we did get it done. But you can see, if you have to do this one of these days at work, you'll go back and say, I'm interested in seeing the form or however the data are inputted that I get for this table and this query. We've done a little bit of a workaround now where they're all separated out. And I was trying to do the lazy way. I should have just put commas after. And you said, what if I had 1,000 of these? Well, best of luck. If you had that's why you have forms. And you've heard me say this over and over and over. The form is really the first step in creating records. It's really the first step in maintaining data collection discipline. And when you practice that discipline, then you can work with the data in a spreadsheet application or an analytical tool like this and do what you need to do. Okay? So that's why the input, and it's the old adage, as you know, garbage in, garbage out. So I've got this file named 99. I'm going to save it. Now notice it's still here. And it's still got that quirky little thing, so I haven't got it converted over to the iconic view. So that would be pretty much it for chapter 9. And I'll click yes. And then I've got that lunches LD chapter 9. And I'm going to rename it. I'm going to put it key. I'm going to put upload for LD chapter 9. All right. And then I'm going to come over to the files. And I'm going to upload that file. It'll be over here for you. And there it is. It's adding it on, and it will be published. It's going slow here, so it's going to take us a little bit of time. But that'll pretty much do it for part 2. There we go. It's there. And that'll take care of it. And I'll go ahead and stop the share and then end the meeting.